Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of JT Talks Jobs. This is the live stream where I answer all of your job search and career growth questions in real time. So today I'm going to be talking about the dreaded group interview. This is a new type of interview that's been steadily on the rise. More and more people are experiencing them. A lot of times they're caught by surprise the first time they go on a group interview. We're going to break it down for you and give you some tips today to help you stand out and move forward in the process. But before I do that, obviously, just want to remind you of a couple of things. I hope that's okay. First of all, if you want to participate in today's live show, you have got to be watching us on LinkedIn. We're actually streaming on a bunch of different platforms today, but the only one where we can monitor the comments will be LinkedIn. All you need to do is go over and follow me on LinkedIn, find my LinkedIn profile, JT O'Donnell, and then click the follow button, and you will then be able to join the live stream. Also, it will notify you when we go live. That way you can jump right into the conversation. The other thing I want to tell you about, and this is really exciting, is that we have started our own hashtag. That way you can go back and find past episodes and conversations and everything else we're doing with the JT Talk Jobs program. So here's the hashtag. Here's how you follow it. Go over to your homepage, go to the hashtags, which is now on the left side, and click the JT Talks Jobs hashtag. I know they'll also put it in the feed for you as well, so you can go follow that link. That way you can always stay in the know as well, all right? So there you have it. It's time to get down to business because we are going to talk about group interviews, the dreaded group interview. So the first thing I want to break down for you is, why is this growing in popularity? So group interviews are when you get there and you and a group of other candidates are there at the same time and being interviewed in a group setting. We actually perform this type of interview here at Work It Daily for several reasons, and for the very same reasons that many companies are doing it. First of all, it's a lot more efficient. Old school interview process is, okay, I want to bring in 5 different people. So I've got to set aside 5 different days. I've got to pull together the schedules of multiple people, decision makers, try to coordinate, get everybody there. Then we've got to regroup and compare and contrast and try to remember what, candidate A was like versus candidate C. It's just not a very good, process. And candidly, it's not good for you because on any given day, things can change. So group interviews are far more efficient. You know that you go in, you see your competition, so to speak, you know the people that you're up against. Everyone interviews on the same day, and usually companies are able to make a decision that day on who's moving forward or who maybe is even getting hired. I know that's how we do it at our company. Or perhaps there's some kind of assignment they want you to do before they make the final pick. Well, after a group interview, it's usually easy to figure out who you want to have do the assignment, that sort of thing. So group interviews, again, are getting more and more common for the efficiency of it and the consistency that it creates. Also, it lets us take a look at what you're like in a group, because some people are very, very good at one-on-one interviewing. And then you get inside a group and you see their whole dynamic change. And so I'll be honest, a lot of times people say, well, don't group interviews really play to the extroverts and the people that are just natural at interviewing? Not in our experience. I actually believe the group interview is better for those introverts or for those individuals who have true emotional intelligence. They know how to be patient, wait their turn. They're more careful in what they say. They don't cut people off. That's the stuff we're looking for in a group interview. And so today I'm going to walk you through 5 tips actually that will help you stand out. And a lot of it's going to be around that aspect of it, because something that we were taught in HR very early in my career, we were taught that whatever you see in the interview, multiply it by 10. And that's the kind of person they're going to be on the job. So we're looking for those little personality things that are kind of giving us the indicator that when magnified, if they actually got the job, could be hard to mesh with our team. And I know you say, oh, JT, that's not fair. It should be based on the person with the best experience. No, folks, it shouldn't. There's hundreds and millions of dollars of research to show that the best performing teams, the teams that are the most productive, the most successful, it's all about the synergy. It's all about the bonding. It's all about people getting along with one another. That does not change. And so you have to be good at these group interviews and show what kind of team player you'll be, because it can actually give you a chance to get the job, even if you don't have all the experience, even if you aren't the most knowledgeable person in the room. We always tell you here at Work It Daily, they hire you on 3 things: personality, aptitude, meaning you can adapt, and experience. And they hire in that order. And so they're always evaluating you on those 3 main things. and trying to find the person that has, the right amount of each. Okay. All right. So let's start to break this down. Before I get started, I just want to give an overarching theme, and I think I've kind of been alluding to it. Always think we, not me. And if you don't know what that means, or if you feel like you need a lesson in it, I'm going to mention a book. It's called Tribal Leadership. It's been around. It's one of my favorite books for business of all times. And it's because they talk about the 5 stages of growth of a company. And a lot of companies today, they kind of cap out at stage 3, which is the I'm the best stage. And that's because they go out and they hire a bunch of individual performers, top performers. So all of us in our career, when we start out, our goal is to get better and better. And we want to be the best because we know the better we get, the more opportunities we'll have, the more income we can make, we can negotiate for higher salaries. So I get that mentality. But at some point in time, you have to flip the switch and start to think about the fact that I want to be on the best team. I want us to say we're the best. And that requires a different mindset and definitely a different way of presenting yourself as a potential candidate. So these days, you should be thinking about that we factor, not that me factor, especially in the group interview. So the first thing that I want to tell you to do is to try not to one-up people. So a very common practice in a group interview would be to go around the room and ask everybody to introduce themselves. At Work It Daily, we often ask you to share something. We'll say like, what's your favorite food, or what's one place that you want to travel to that's on your bucket list? Something that everyone in the room can share, including all of the people that are on my staff that are interviewing. We put everyone together. So we really want to build that team moment and get everyone to see our styles as well as an opportunity to share their style. So some of the recent mistakes I've seen people make is that we'll have somebody who's a candidate say something really funny or tell a really interesting story, and then the person after that will feel like they have to one up them. They'll have to say something more interesting or kind of better than. And it's clear they're trying to do that because they're feeling that competitive spirit. On the flip side, I've also seen people say, well, I can't top that, and not say it in a lighthearted tone, but more of a competitive, snarky tone that sort of plays down or almost makes fun of the person for sharing it. Once again, that's a red flag to me because it shows that you're not good with competition. This person did something great. They shared something great. It was evident. So you don't have to be over the top about it. You also don't have to try to, trash talk them for it. So really think about it. Stay in your lane. Stay true to your personality. Say what you really feel and believe. Use your natural energy, but be very cognizant of the fact that just because you're in the group setting, this is not the time to try to one-up somebody there. You're not in that kind of competition. All right, second tip, making eye contact with everyone. This is a big one for me. So when we go in and we introduce ourselves, obviously there's going to be people of all levels, right? You might have some new people who are more entry level that are there interviewing you. You might have the hiring manager. You might even have the CEO in the room. And so many times I've seen the candidate focus all their attention on the hiring manager or on the most senior executive in the room. Big, big mistake. Anybody from the company that is there interviewing you has a say in whether or not you get hired. And for you to direct all your attention and all of your answers towards the more senior people, it's a real sign of disrespect. So make sure that you practice scanning the room. And that's something that you can do at home. Everyone here should be prepping. If you're not, I'm showing resource page down below. As you know, we reference a lot of resources here. We have a ton of them at Work It Daily, free resources. One of them down below is the most common interview questions. You should download that. You should write out the answers, and you should practice answering and scanning the room when you're answering. Because if you're in a group interview, you have to be able to talk and make eye contact with everyone. Now, little tip, if you're very, very nervous when you interview and this idea of scanning is too distracting, then one thing I can tell you to do is whoever asks the question, you can respond to them. But try not to automatically respond to whoever you think is the most senior person, okay? But ideally, what you want to be able to do is scan the room when you're answering the question. Awesome, okay. So third tip, Build on what others say. So this is very different than one-upping. I don't want you to one-up. Building on what others say is you showing that you're listening to everyone around you. This is a big one. So let's say you're in a group interview and one of the candidates there is sharing or answering a question in a particular way, and it really makes sense to you. Something they said really resonates. And in your mind, you're going, dang, like that's what I wanted to say. That was the aha moment or the brilliant thing I wanted to share, observation, whatever. You can build on that. You can say, I really liked Larry's answer, especially when he talked about this, because I can relate to that. Something very similar happened to me. And in fact, this is what happened after that. So you have to pay attention to all the other players. And when it makes sense, if they've said something valuable, hat tip them for it. Hat tipping is when you acknowledge and you compliment. That is one of the biggest signs of character to me in a group interview. If somebody at the table is so comfortable with themselves and doesn't feel competitive that they can compliment and, rise up another candidate, bonus points. Because in my company, that's what we're about. We're a team. And everyone here has a specialty and they know their specialty, but they also know that we couldn't do what we do without one another. And so it's very important that we compliment and recognize one another. So that's an opportunity for you to do that in the group interview, and it really scores bonus points. All right, number 4, treat everyone like the CEO. I kind of alluded to this one already, but I need to reinforce it. Again, if you're sitting there directing all your attention and if you're being more animated and energetic with the CEO or the hiring manager and you're sort of ignoring the receptionist or the intern, don't forget, if they're in that interview, they have a say in whether you get hired. In one of my future episodes, I'm going to walk you all through the 4 buyers in the hiring process. I'm going to show you who they are and help you understand that there are a lot of technical buyers in a hiring process. These are people that are there to assess your abilities. And even though they can't get you the job, they can get you disqualified. Also, you want to get to know the users, people that would be like your peers. Again, they don't get the final say on whether you get hired, but they can make your life miserable and sabotage you on the job if you were disrespectful to them. So again, everyone there is equal. They would not be in that room if they weren't. And you need to remember that and really pay, respect to everyone there. And then my 5th tip is to really showcase your intellectual humility. This is such a big one with me these days. I can't stress it enough. And it's interesting. I think a lot of this has to do with the generations and how they're evolving. So no slight to my boomers, my older generation. You were raised in a time where it was very important to be the best. You were raised with that competitive nature in a time in business where, there were hierarchy in performance and competitiveness. And so you've been raised to, talk about yourself and all of your experience and really showcase your knowledge that you're a jack or a Jill of all trades. Problem is that doesn't land very well with the other generations because they weren't raised that way, right? Gen Xers were, the smallest generation. They were raised to be very independent and entrepreneurial and not as competitive as much as it was, hey, we've got to do this. We've got to get this done. And then millennials were raised with everything is team-based. Help teammates, help each other. So you have to really start to follow this new trend because there's such a larger percentage of people in the workforce now who are about this concept of intellectual humility. And what it simply means is that you really are able to play down your own skills and abilities and play up those around people around you, which again, I've alluded to in earlier tips. But in this case, you have to think about that. Complimenting people. When you share stories about your accomplishments, use the term we, not me, right? We did this together. We were able to make this happen. Really share in the success as you're sharing that success, share it with others, so to speak. And understanding how to present yourself in a way that has a lot of intellectual humility is super important these days. You have to be careful that you're not too over the top or, as we say, yelling and selling. And that's just, it's like nails on the chalkboard. It rubs people the wrong way. So be very careful of that in group interviews. Sometimes people will say to me, oh, everybody was super quiet. So, I've got a big personality, JT. I can't help myself. So, I was just the social person in the room. I just kind of took charge and, made everybody laugh and, kept things going. People will leave really proud of that and then shocked when they don't move to the next round. And that's because they didn't have enough emotional intelligence and intellectual humility to pull back and understand it wasn't their job. No one assigned them to own the room. No one assigned them to, want to be the rock star. And again, this is very different than what other generations have experienced. So that's why group interviews are something that's new that you need to practice your answers and your interactions around. All right. I'm going to end with this, and then we're going to go to Q&A. So start getting those questions ready. It's not about being the best. And in fact, if you check out that tribal leadership book that I recommended, it's such a great book, such an important read. They've got it on books on tape on Audible. It's not about being the best. It's about being part of the best. And when you go into a group interview thinking about that and sharing your experience about how you've been part of the best and really how you want to be part of the best, you will do much better, much, much better in that group interview. There's a reason that company is having a group interview. There's a reason we do them at my company, because that's how we operate. We want to be, as tribal leadership points out, at the pinnacle. And to do that, we have to be part of a problem that's bigger than ourselves. We have to put our personal egos aside, and we have to be an amazing team. Group interviews are how you find those right people. So if you want to work for a company like that and they're bringing you in on a group interview, these are the things that you need to do. Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm sure I've got some questions around this now. So I want to be able to bring that up. So give me a second here to bring that all up on the screen. There we go. Let's make some room. All my stuff is in view here. You're getting to see my beautiful mic and my beautiful screen. There we go. Everyone good? All right. So folks, when I'm not looking at you, I'm over here looking at our live stream chat. My teammates are awesome. Again, we're taking questions today from those of you that are on the LinkedIn live stream. So if you have your question, pop it in there and we will be good to go. Okay. And then in the meantime, another reminder, it's rolling at the bottom of the screen. All of the resources that I refer to when I answer questions are all stored over at workitdaily/resources. Easiest thing for you to be able to go and access and download. So don't worry about that. Okay. Awesome. All right. Let's take a look here. So first question is from, I hope I'm saying this right. Ombige. Is that right? Ombige. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. Is a group interview quite different from an open interview? So I've never heard of an open interview. That's a new one to me. But I think you might be referring to a panel interview. And if you are, yes, it's different. A panel interview is when you go in by yourself, but there's a panel of people that are asking you questions. So you're still one-on-one, but it's you and a team of people from the company. That's a panel interview, and it may be referred to as an open interview. Very different than a group interview where it's you and 2, 3, 4 other candidates plus the employees of the company all together. All right, different style, different approach. Jolene says, and I read here, hey, Jolene, I did group interviews in my last job, and observing how the candidates interacted with each other was important as their responses. Yeah, thank you, Jolene. In fact, shout out everyone here. How many of you have actually been on a group interview? Put it in the chat. I want to see how many of you have been on a group interview before. Tell me how it went. Tell me what your biggest problem was. Let's talk about that for a little bit. It is fascinating to do group interviews and see how people interact. They're very different than one-on-one interviews. Very, very different. And you know what's interesting? The other reason that I like them is that the candidates that don't get selected, it's a little less of a blow. I've had so many people leave our group interview and message us and say, I'm bummed that I didn't get the job, but I don't feel bad. I just enjoyed meeting you all. And it was nice to see the other people who were very qualified and great and see that, it wasn't just me, there was a lot of good competition. And that's something that, I'm always trying to drive home here, because people get so upset when they get rejected. They go, what did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. There's just a lot of good talent out there these days. I'm always telling people it's like having a barrel of apples that all look absolutely beautiful. Which apple do you pick to eat? I don't know. Are you more hungry today, so you pick the bigger apple? Are you more in the mood for a green apple than one that's got red? It becomes so inconsequential at that point. You're not doing anything wrong. Unless an employer flat out says to you, you bombed, you were awful, you're blacklisted, and we'll never talk to you again, which they never do. right? They never say that. Then they just said to you, not today. And that's upsetting to me because I know lots of people go, well, I didn't get the job there, so I never looked at jobs with them again. Well, that's silly. You got all the way through the interview process. You made friends. You networked your way into that company. And just because you didn't get that job, you wrote them off. Wow, that's pretty short-sighted. I would build on that investment of your time and the relationship. And I would next time apply again and reach out to those people and say, I see there's another job. Would I be a fit for that? Or what do I need to do this time to earn the interview? Stick with it. Show them you really meant it when you said you wanted to work there. You want to work there enough that you're patient enough to get the job. That's my take on that. Ooh, that went in a tangent. All right. Jared says, how do you bounce back from a bad answer in a group interview? Okay. Need a little coffee for that one, Jared. So yes, that's a super question. So let's say you bomb an answer. So you give an answer, especially if you're the first person to answer and maybe you misinterpret the question. Or I've seen people, they're like in the middle of the pack and they just say something and they were trying to be funny or they were trying to be different and they get off a tangent and it just bombs. I've seen that too. Either way, my advice is to call it out next time you get asked a question and then never speak of it again. Because I do think you want to acknowledge the fact that you gave a bad answer, but you don't want to harp on it. So next time around when it gets to you, you can say, okay, I can't wait to answer this one because, I'm not loving, I bombed that last one. Sorry about that. Wasn't my best answer. Wish I could answer it again. But moving on, let me answer this one. So acknowledge it, say it, then keep going. Don't bring it up again and again, though. Don't be that person that keeps coming back to it like you're all sorts of worried about it. That just keeps reminding them that you screwed up. And that makes you, lose points, so to speak. But I do love the idea of owning it. If you know it and the room knows it, owning to that and then moving on. Okay. That's my advice for you. And I've seen people do that quite successfully. Philip says, let me take a look here. Philip says, what are the typical numbers on each side, interviewer and interviewed? That's a great question. It varies company to company, Jared. Sometimes they'll do a big group interview. So they'll have 20 or 30 candidates come. They'll do like a mingle, a networking where you're just kind of roaming around. They'll sit down, they'll do an orientation where somebody will speak at the company, and then they'll break you up into smaller groups and have you rotate through and interview in smaller groups. I've seen that at big companies where they're hiring multiple people for the position. In our case, I historically will bring in no more than 3 to 5 people. I want at least 3 people there because it's weird if it's 2. That feels super competitive. And like I said, you hire one, the other 2 know they weren't alone. But you want to bring in between 3 to 5 people. And that's about the most that you can get through. And then I have my entire team, although we're getting so big now, my awesome team over there, that we won't have everybody be part of the interviews anymore. Just the department will be part of it. And in that case, it's probably going to be, equal, maybe another 3 to 5 people who are part of the decision making. So oftentimes in those smaller settings, it'll be pretty equal on either side, or maybe a little bit more of the company members, but usually about 3 to 5 people that get brought in for that group side. That said, it can be different, and that's why you've really got to prepare. Like I said today with these tips, think about the we, the not me. Think about that, intellectual humility and how to really compliment and play up other people and build on the people around you. Think teammates. All right, let's take a look at some more questions here. Let's see. Rosalind says, how is it decided who to choose after a group interview? Oh, that's a great question. So Rosalind, if you're having a group interview, then you are placing a lot of emphasis on their personality and what they presented and how well you thought they got, the job and the questions they were being asked. So a lot of times in group interviews, you're going to be asked behavioral questions. If you don't know what those are, again, check out the resource over on our page. We'll walk you through what those are. But those behavioral questions, they're open-ended and they require you to give like a story as an answer about your experience. So usually we're looking at that and saying, who gave answers that felt right, that felt like they heard and understood, that matched the depth of experience that we're looking for? Who did you naturally feel like you could sit and have a conversation with? Who did you feel like that you could give the instructions to and they would get it done? There's criteria. And that criteria is generally defined in the job description. So when you're going in what you're being evaluated on, but they're looking at all of that. and balancing it based on that. And it's going to be different for every job, and it's going to be different in every situation. So my advice is to study the job description and really look at that piece. And also, it's okay to ask that in the interview. I think a lot of people, when they get to the part to say, do you have any questions? One of your questions can be, at the end of the group interview today, what does the process look like for you to determine who's the best person for the role and who you'll be choosing? Totally within your rights to ask that, and you'll get some great information. Awesome. Let's see. How to be able to know how you've done in a group interview, Carl is asking. It's tough to know. It's really tough to know in a group interview. You generally find out afterwards. I think that you can try to evaluate how they respond to you, but usually everyone's super pleasant because you've come in and you're in a group setting. Nobody's going to give away that the fact that you're not doing well. Usually you're going to be pretty polite. So I don't know that there's any easy way to know how you're doing in a group interview. If you're highly emotionally intelligent and you can read people's body language, facial expressions, tones, if you're able to gauge a room and their reactions, you might have some sense. But for the most part, it's hard to tell. You really don't know until afterwards, till you find out whether you moved forward or not. Let's see. All right. Group interviews for IT positions seem to be geared towards emotional intelligence interactions. How do you practice? Yeah, so Cheryl, it really is about studying behavioral questions and thinking about your answers. So your answers in a group interview should follow a certain pattern. So when you're giving an example or you're trying to, explain how you have certain experience, you always want to first, tell a story where you explain the facts around, the task or the assignment or the situation. You want to talk about what you learned from that, because it's very important that you be learning and that you have grown, and how you're going to apply what you've learned so that you can grow even further. So there's a process, and we teach that at Work It Daily. It's called the Experience, Learn, and Grow model for answering questions. It's very important, especially if you're in IT, that you get familiar with that, because if you're sort of more introverted and answering questions in detail is challenging for you, having a framework to do that can really calm your nerves, but also make sure that you're checking all the boxes and answering the things that they need in a logical format. So definitely check that out, because it's important that you do practice that. And as far as practicing goes, we have our clients write it out, and then they can submit the answers to us for review. And then if they want to do a mock interview, they can also invest in that and do a mock interview with us to be able to see how they're doing and give them feedback on their eye contact, their facial expressions, etc. So that's just a service that we offer at Work It Daily. Awesome. Let's see. Tang says, how do you impress a group Skype interview? What and who to focus upon? So anytime you do a digital group interview, folks, everyone's on the page. The key is, it's a little different. The key is to be able to look into the camera, but a lot of the techniques that we talked about here apply. Wait your turn, build on what other people say, compliment other people, right? Think about that. Try not to dominate the conversation. Try not to one-up people. It's all very similar. You just have to be doing it online, and the added benefit of practicing how to look in the camera. Awesome. All right. Do you think that group interviews are better for entry-level roles? That's a great question, Heather. We do them here for entry-level roles. I think because for entry-level, you don't have a lot of experience, and we know that. We know that you're not coming with decades of experience. So what we need to do is figure out, do you have the personality and the aptitude to be able to pick things up quickly? Do we want to invest? And that's something, anybody out there that's entry-level, a company at that point, they're not going to make any money off you. They're not going to see a return on the investment in you for months. For months. It's a minimum of 6 months at my company, because you have to learn who we are and what we're about. We have to get you trained, your skills. We can't, there's no program we can just download into your head. So it truly is, us, we're investing in you, knowing that if in those 6 months, if we can't get you to a certain level of proficiency and knowledge about who we are and what we're about, you're not going to be able to start to improve and add value. So I definitely think group interviews are great for that, because we're really looking at, are you going to be somebody the team wants to coach? Are you somebody the team feels excited about? Because you need everyone to really be in your court when you're a new employee, because they are the ones that are going to help you upskill. So that becomes very important. Yeah, definitely. So great questions, by the way, folks. You guys are crushing it today. Let's see. What other questions do we have? So are we feeling good about group interviews? Because if we are, I'm going to open the floor up to all questions. We can go to general career Q&A now. And so anything, it doesn't have to be group interview related. Feel free to post your questions. For those of you that are just joining us, welcome. So excited to have all of you that are on our Facebook page, our Facebook group, YouTube. We love having you all here. However, the only place you can post questions and get them answered in the live streams is on LinkedIn. So please make sure that you are over on LinkedIn. If you want to post a question, you can follow me on LinkedIn. That's how you can get access to it. Just go over to my profile, click the profile follow, and you'll be able to go from there. The other thing I wanted to tell you all just really quickly, and I'm going to bring it up on the screen, is that we are also on Instagram and TikTok. Yes, we are. Super fun. For those of you that aren't on that, a lot of people go, are you kidding me, JT? More platforms? Well, these are very different platforms, and we provide different types of information coaching on there. So go over there. I've got them rolling down here below. Come follow me on Instagram. Come follow me on TikTok. I'm telling you, TikTok is it's going to be probably one of the most significant social media tools in the next several years. Trust me, it is absolutely, it's probably going to overtake Instagram. It's definitely going to overtake Facebook. It's crazy how much it's growing. So it's in your best interest if you've never been on TikTok to at least understand it. This is about sustained growth. It's going to become more and more important that we understand all these different technologies. So you got to do it, folks, especially my over 50 crew out there. You know who you are. Don't have to create a video, but you do need to get on there and start to understand how TikTok works. So follow me on TikTok, follow me on Instagram, and we can hang out together and I can keep giving you some career content. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Back to it. Let's see. What other questions do we have today? Let's open up the floor to other things. Rosalind is saying any books to read on EQ, body language adaptation, or interpretation. Yeah, I don't have any specific books to recommend for you on that. There are just a lot of people that out there that are doing the whole EQ thing these days that I think that you can just Google search it and you'll find a ton reading up on it. I don't know that you necessarily even need a book, Rosalind. I'm a huge fan of YouTubing it. I'd go over there and search put in emotional intelligence, how to improve emotional intelligence. I would do a how-to search. I think you'd find some fantastic videos over there that would help you with that. And you know, those are timely. You can do them right now. I also think you could listen to podcasts on it. I wouldn't be surprised if there's an EQ podcast, and that would be a great thing to do as well. But emotional intelligence is really huge. Being self-aware and putting yourself in other people's shoes and understanding that is so big these days and so necessary. You know, we've gotten to a place, folks, and just me ranting for a second, but everyone's in a pain. And when people are in pain, the first thing that goes out the window is empathy. And once you lose your empathy, you start losing your understanding and your appreciation for others. So we've got a lot of anger out there. We've got a lot of judgment out there. We've got a lot of criticism out there. And so you have got to fight back against that. And having emotional intelligence and learning how to really have gratitude every day, that's a term that's getting more and more used. You can't be angry and sad and stressed and have gratitude at the same time. So some of these top performers, you'll hear them talk about that all the time, how they constantly condition their brain that when they had a negative thought, they went straight to gratitude, because they understood the power of it. And when you have gratitude, you can have empathy. And that's important, because when you can be empathetic to others, when you can understand their situation, you can communicate better, you have more patience, and you can get better results. You can solve problems together. It's really, really important. You've got to get to a good place with people. And that starts with emotional intelligence, so that you can build your empathy, so that you can build your gratitude, so that you can stay in a positive place and be highly, highly effective. The most effective people I know in their careers, the most successful people I know, have conditioned themselves to think positive. It's a skill. It's a muscle, and you have to build it. And so that is key. And I love that you asked that question, because it's something I surround myself with all the time. That's another thing that we can talk about here. You know, clear out your social media feeds. Get rid of, the stuff that's snarky, the joking, the negativity. Get rid of it. Go follow people who talk nothing but positive gratitude mindset. You do enough of that, you will change your brain, because the imagery And the audio and the constant feed is going to reprogram your mind to think that way. It's going to help you squash that negativity. You hear all the time that you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So in your career, if you don't have access to positive people, if you're sitting around a bunch of toxic people at work, it's going to be hard for you to stay positive. It's going to be hard for you to grow. That's why you actually need to build social media feeds filled with positive, emotionally intelligent people who are coaching you so that you can fight back against that and go, I'm not crazy here. These people have problems. It's not me. And I'm going to be able to rise above, right? So very important that you do that as well. Awesome. All right. Y'all got me on a tangent. All right. Let's go through some more questions here. If you turned down a job offer before, is it okay to apply again a couple years later? So you can apply online, but again, if you got all the way through the hiring process, you built some relationships there. So for me, let's say it's a couple years later and your application comes through and I go, wait a minute. Wait, isn't this the person we offered the job to a couple of years ago and they declined it and now we're just getting a random application? I'm probably going to think it's a fluke. I'm definitely going to think it's weird. My advice is to reach out to some of the people that you went through the hiring process with there and say, hey, it's been a couple of years. I turned down that job offer with you all, but I've learned a lot since then. I see that you've reposted a position and I'm really interested in seeing if I might still have the opportunity to earn a job with you now. So you want to ask that to somebody and see if you could be in the running and very politely inquire. And I would do that through LinkedIn, or if you still have their email address, I would email them and say, look, I didn't want to stuff your inbox and I didn't want to waste your time on an application if you didn't think that I would be somebody that might be eligible since I turned down a job before. But if I would be eligible, I would love to chat with somebody because I'm really excited about the role. That's what you need to do, because applying blindly is going to look weird. Great question, by the way. Haven't had that question before. Laura says, when filling out a job app, is it okay to answer the desired salary question with the to be discussed if you do not want to be excluded? No, Laura, it is not okay. I'm glad you asked that question. I can tell you right now, if somebody puts to be discussed, you're going in another pile. If I ask you a question, I want you to answer it. You are the business. I am the customer. So you skirting my question, that feels disrespectful to me. I don't like it. So imagine you went in and you were all ready to buy a big screen TV. And the salesperson walked up to you and said, oh, tell me about what you're looking for. And they tell you, okay. And the salesperson said, you asked the person, okay, they said, well, here are the 5 TVs. And you say, great, tell me how much they are. And the salesperson said, no, I don't think I'm going to tell you. Let's discuss that later. How would you feel? Completely turned off. Completely turned off. So that's what's happening here. And I know there are coaches out there that give this information and it frustrates the heck out of me. It really does, because they don't understand. Recruiters are technical buyers. They're told that you need to meet a salary requirement. That's why applying online is the problem in the first place. The real problem here is you applying online and having to give your salary that way. That's the real problem, because an application isn't a person. It's just a list of skills. It's not the whole person. So for me, the solution is, if there's a space, and obviously if there was a space for you to write something, there's a space to put a range in there. And we teach you how to develop a nice broad range that encompasses your walkaway rate and your ideal. All right. And there's a whole process around that. But once you put that in there, chances are you're going to fall in their range and you'll be considered. And sometimes they ask you for a specific dollar amount, in which case I tell people, find the middle of your range and go about 10% below it. Because the truth is, if you put in something and you're not a fit, then you're not going to convince them otherwise right now. Not through this process, not through online. The more important thing to do would be to give the range or give the amount and then start the networking process. Because applying online, you got less than a 3% chance, truly, studies show less than a 3% chance of ever being responded to. It is because nowadays the online application process has made it so easy for people to apply that employers get hundreds, sometimes thousands of applicants for a job. So they have to screen you out best on salary. Because guess what, Laura? If it's not you, somebody else is going to fit it. That's the law of supply and demand. We're all a commodity. Until proven otherwise, you're a commodity. So they can ask that question because they're going to get 10 or 12 candidates who fall in the range they're looking for. This is why applying online stinks, and you really should try not to do it. So instead, what you want to do is go around the system, network your way in, try to get a hold of the hiring manager, write a killer disruptive cover letter that tells why the story of why you feel so connected to the company. Now they're really interested because you told this amazing story. Now they see your resume. Well, now salary is negotiable because you were able to get in there based on your personality, your aptitude, and your experience, which I talked about earlier, not just your experience. When it's just your experience, you're a commodity. And they're going to go with the cheapest person who has the most experience. That's how online applications work, because your personality and your aptitude don't show. If you don't want to compete on price, Laura, if you want to get a higher salary, and that's everyone out there, not just Laura, if you're out there and you don't want to compete on price and you want a better salary, you need to start networking with those employers. You have to get around the ATS and you have to share with them that compelling story about why you get them. Why are you part of their tribe? When you do that, now you've got their attention. You're holding their attention. And once you start to talk to them and they realize you have the experience to boot, now you're attractive. Now you're worth a little something extra because you're the total package. But you can't present the total package online, folks. That's why I hate online applications. It's awful, but it is the first part of the process. And you know, the funny thing is that job seekers don't get the value of the disruptive cover letter until they do it and it works for them. So we will post, and when we post a job here at Work It Daily, we say, look, you should include a disruptive cover letter. Here's how to do it. Here's what we want to hear from you. And I'm telling you right now, the ones that do it, it takes more time. We give people more time to apply. But the ones that do it, they always stand out and get the job interviews. They do. Because it was a chance for them to share, how do they feel connected to us? How do they get us? Do they understand why we exist? Do they identify with the whole reason the business exists? That's what you've got to get across to employers, folks. And you can't do that with an online application. And that's why the salary thing is such a big issue. So going back to the original answer, put in a range, put in an amount. You can't get around it. But what you do need to do is start. If this is a job that sounds really good to you, you need to start the networking process. Awesome question, by the way, Laura. All right, let's see. Who else do we have here? Let's see. Michaela says, I would like to know which way you would recommend to follow up on an application. I applied to a role, and 2 weeks after I contacted the hiring manager through InMail. If he's not answering, what else should I do? Well, Michaela, at that point, I would go back and wherever you applied online, is there a contact to the recruiter? I would check with the recruiter. I would try to email the recruiter and say, I wanted to follow up and see if there's anything else I can do to further my candidacy. The hiring manager is probably not responding to you because, they haven't either looked through all the candidates, or the hiring manager doesn't want to disrupt the process. Maybe they're, or doesn't want to overshare. Who knows? There's good reasons why a hiring manager might not respond. So I would go through the main channel if you can, try to find the recruiter that posted their job or whoever posted the job and ask for a status update and see if there's anything you can do to further your candidacy. Let's see. Benjamin is asking, this is a great question. Why is TikTok more likable than other sites? You know why? Because of the fact that videos hold your attention, and the majority of the content being created right now is by everyday people like you and me. And what you're going to see happen very quickly is that people are going to become incredible experts. Complete unknowns who don't have big brands are going to become awesome experts in a wide variety of things. And if you don't believe me, go check social media guru Gary Vee. He'll tell you it. But if you are passionate about a subject and you feel like you have a lot to offer, this is the easiest way to do it. Hop on camera, share your 2 cents, give people a couple of points, do it in under 60 seconds. That's the sign of a true expert. I'm following the most interesting people on TikTok. There's an ex-Navy SEAL. He is giving insanely awesome advice, and he's blowing up. Insanely awesome advice. So for me, it's about finding people that are offering up smart stuff and popping it into my feed. Things that I wouldn't think about otherwise. These people are making me smarter. They're opening my eyes to things. I feel so much more worldly And I feel like I understand what's going on in a lot of people's lives more as a result of TikTok. I mean, like anything, like any new social platform, it's meant to be fun at first. It's lighthearted. It's fun. The creatives get on there. There's a lot of that. That's how YouTube was. That's how Instagram was. And then they became social marketplaces. They became places where people could really educate and earn trust and earn respect and earn business. And so you're crazy. Honestly, I'm saying it. You're crazy if you're not on TikTok trying to understand it. I am not suggesting you have to participate in it and post videos, but it is crazy not to explore it and see some of the incredible content, tips, advice, everything. It's like the perfect combination of YouTube, Pinterest, and Instagram. Literally, it's like the perfect combination of those three. And I mean, scrolling, it's unbelievable the way it holds your attention. So, and as you get better and better at who you follow, your content gets better and better, like anything. Social media, just going to rant for a second about this. I'm so tired of people blaming social media. Oh, social media is the reason why everybody's depressed. No one forced your hand and said, you must sign up for Facebook. You must look at it every day. All right. People spend over an hour a day liking and looking on social media now. No one is forcing you to do that. These tools can be used for good and for evil. They really can. Evil being wasting your time and making you feel bad about yourself. Good being scrub all your social media profiles, figure out which people you should be following, and really focus in on, I'm only going to choose to follow and like things that just made me smarter, things that made me feel better about myself. That's a conscious choice. In the same way eating healthy food is, or exercising. We know we need to do those things, but we're not always really good at doing them. And the reason for that is, it takes discipline. I actually think it's easier than ever. I mean, if you really want to get better in your life, in all areas of your life, you should focus your social media and say, what am I trying to make better? Am I trying to save money? Am I trying to change jobs or get build my career? Whatever it is, go find the 5, 10, 15, 20 people that are talking about this and fill your feed with it for a week. Watch what happens. Literally, your brain changes. I don't know if you all know this, but when you have positive thoughts, when you learn new things, your brain changes chemically. It changes. And so the more you do this, the better you get. The most successful people I know in the world, they are very intentional about where they give their attention. And I wrote about this on LinkedIn earlier this week. They are very, very intentional about where they give their attention, who they give their attention to. Attention, folks, is a commodity. It's such an important currency. Your attention is worth something. Everyone's vying for it. Everyone's on social media trying to capture your attention, hold your attention. This is a valuable, valuable currency that you own because there's only so many hours in the day, right? There's only so much time you can give someone your attention. Choosing who you give your attention to and really sticking to that every day, game changer. Absolute game changer on social media. And so now you've got this incredible new venue like TikTok where you can self-select and be able to scroll through and just elevate yourself in the most positive way. That's it. That's the power. It's incredible. I mean, I can't believe we live in a time where that's possible, where self-help is possible at scale like I've never seen before. It's just awesome. Just awesome. So thanks for asking that question because, boy, I could talk about that for a while. All right, let me see how I'm doing on time. All right, got about 10 minutes left here, folks, in the hour. So what other questions can I answer for you today? If Doug is asking, hey, Doug, if someone I interviewed with doesn't respond to the thank you email, how often is it that I sign that they're not interested in you? So first of all, you got to give them a little time. When we go on an interview, we're waiting on pins and needles. We have a job crush. An hour feels like a week, right? But on the other side, they've got other stuff going on. So, a day can feel like an hour to them and they can forget to respond. And sometimes they feel like, okay, you sent a thank you. That's fine. I don't need to follow up. It really depends on the person. My advice is, and hopefully you did this, Doug, in the interview, did you ask for next steps? Because you always want to do that, folks. Never leave an interview without saying, what are the next steps in the process? And, how will I hear or be notified if I'm moving forward in the process? Those are questions you can ask. So if you ask that and you heard, well, it'll be a couple weeks, whatever, you now need to wait until that time passes. And then what I would do is follow up with this individual and say, just wanted to circle back. It's been 2 weeks. I was curious if there was anything else I could do to further my candidacy. And that's how you ask that, is if there's anything else I can do to further my candidacy. That's it. And wait to see if you hear anything. If you don't hear anything after a week, then you probably haven't moved forward. And while I think it's kind of jerky of them not to close the loop on you, it happens. But more likely you'll hear, well, we moved forward with other candidates, or we're still thinking it through, or something like that. So, wait until the time has passed that they said would pass. Send them a follow-up email and ask if there's anything else you can do to further your candidacy. That's what you want to do next, okay? And in the meantime, get busy finding another job. This job crush thing, it'll kill you, folks. It'll kill you. You go on an interview and you like the company and you leave, so you stop looking because you're like, oh, what if I get this job? No. You keep looking. You double down. You try to find 20 more companies you're interested in. You stay busy. You don't get a job crush, because unfortunately, a lot of times your heart gets broken. And it's better to stay busy, because you're going to feel so terrible if you wasted a week not looking and then you don't move forward in the process. You're going to feel terrible that you weren't looking for a job. So look for a job, double down. Okay. Awesome. Let's say Cheryl says, what happens when you give a company a range, a salary range, and they write the offer on the low end? That's a great question. So we see that happen, Cheryl. We have a whole salary negotiation course inside Work It Daily that we take people through. And when you get to that stage, you're going to have to go through the process of determining whether or not it makes sense to counter, or to at least ask for an increase. Now, to ask for an increase, you need to go through the process of inventorying why you feel you're worth more than that amount, because that was in your range. So you have to say, when I gave that range, it was because I thought the job only required this, and this. Now that I've been through the entire hiring process and I see that you don't have these certain benefits, I'm going to be doing these extra tasks, you're going to need me to do this, and this, I really feel like it would be better if I could earn X, right? I'm really looking to earn X in order to cover my costs, that sort of thing. A lot of times it can be a cost situation. Maybe the commute's longer than you thought. Again, certain key benefits are going away that you need to replace. Whatever it is, you're going to need some strong business reasons to be able to say, I know that I gave you a range and I know that you're within my range, but based on what I'm seeing, it would really be the best if I could earn X. It would really help me out, and I would be extremely grateful. Now, when you counter, not only do you have to share these business reasons, but you also then have to close with, if you can do this for me, I promise you, I will exceed your expectations. I'm going to prove to you that it was a great investment, that you're going to get your return on the investment. So you really want to put like a personal guarantee in there and tell them that they would be doing something huge to build the trust and respect of this partnership, because you're in the early stages of a business partnership, right? You're a business of one selling your services. The business is realizing it needs a little bit more than what they're offering. So you want to be able to say, look, if you can meet me there and you can get me there, I'll be really grateful. Now, if they say no, then the answer is to ask for right there on the spot. If you get a no, you have one more shot to follow up and ask for something else, folks. And normally what I suggest people do when we coach them is say, well, is it possible to have a 90-day review or a 6-month review where we could look and see if I'm exceeding your expectations, we could revisit that pay rate? Because I'd really like to get to that pay rate. Can you tell me what it's going to take to get to that pay rate? Are we talking a year, 2 years, or is it possible for me to, at 6 months or 90 days, could we revisit it? So you want to make that very clear to them, because if you do not do that, then it really could be a situation where they're not talking about a raise for some time. And you want to know that before you accept this opportunity, because you might decide to turn it down. You might go back and say, you know what, I like you so much, but based on that, even though that's my range, based on the reasons I gave you, I really need a bit more. And, I don't want to take this job and be thinking about finding a new job because it's not covering my costs, right? So you might decide to back down. It's totally your call, but those are the processes or steps you should go through. And it's unique for each person, but that's kind of the overview of how you do it. Awesome. All right. Paige is saying, what are the top 3 red flags a company culture is not a good fit for you? Well, first of all, Paige, that's different for everyone. We're all different. It's why it's very important that you do deep self-assessment. I am shocked at the number of people that don't do a lot of self-assessment when they're thinking about their next career move. We have at Work It Daily, we have a professional strengths assessment that our members take. There's 7 exercises in it. We look at your work style, your learning preferences, your interaction style, your communication style, how you like to communicate. We look at the 8 key areas of life, how you rank them, right? We look at all these different things. We look at your passions and interests. We look at your unique gifts. We look at your workplace personas. I mean, there's just these things that you need to understand about yourself so that you know what you're looking for when you go in, so that you ask questions and you observe. So if you can tell if it's right for you, because I can put somebody in one company and they'll love it and put another person in there and they'll hate it. So this is why we have to do way more self-reflection, self-assessment. And if you haven't done that, that's the first step. But red flag should be if they answer a question and you feel, I mean, it's a gut thing, right? They answer a question and something in the radar goes off and you say, that answer didn't land right for me, right? Or I'm not feeling just natural and welcome and warm. Something has me on edge. You have to step back and you should talk to somebody and say, what is it that's throwing me off? What's the vibe? Because so many times people will say, you know what, JT, my gut told me something was off, but I needed a job so bad. And this is what I hear all the time. I needed a job so bad, I just took it. And then I got there and my gut was right. Of course your gut was right because it wasn't your gut. It was years of experience. It was all these things that you're watching, you're listening, you're observing. You're smart. It's your emotional intelligence. Something was off and you didn't get to the bottom of it. And so I can't answer that because it's going to be different for every person. All I can tell you is that if all of you out there are not self-assessing, if you don't have a deep understanding of who you are and how you do work and what it takes for you to succeed in an environment, then you don't know what questions to ask. And you don't know what to look for in an employer. And, I just remember the early days in my career. I mean, they didn't teach us this stuff in school, right? This is part of the problem. This is why I started the company Work It Daily. Because after many years in HR and recruiting and also just trying to navigate my own career, I realized no one's teaching us this stuff, right? The employers have the upper hand because we don't know what to look for. How are we going to rebuild the employer-employer relationship if I, as a business of one, don't know how to build the right partnership, don't know what I'm looking for, don't know what I need and how to ask for it and how to earn the trust and respect. So that's what we're trying to fix at Work It Daily. That's why we want to career coach everyone, because when you have a career coach, you have somebody who can help you get that trust and respect. But my point being, we all grow up and all of us have taken jobs and gotten there, and it's a toxic boss, it's a psycho coworker, poor working conditions, bad product, whatever. And it made it a terrible place to work. And we're so mad at ourselves because we think, how do we not see this in the interview? We didn't see it in the interview because we didn't know to look for it. We didn't know what to ask. We didn't know what to pay attention to. If you want to find a great opportunity, you need to know yourself and you need to know what to look for. And again, they didn't teach that in school, and that's why you need to go learn it. Really awesome. So I'm actually going to end on that note because that was a great question. Listen, folks, I am broadcasting 2 to 3 times a week. If you follow my LinkedIn feed, you will see what subjects we're going to be talking about. I always do. Here's the format of the JT Talks Job Show. I always do a little tutorial on the front end of the class, something that will make you smarter. Work it daily. That's the mantra, right? If you want to work it daily, come here, learn a little something every day. And then I open it up for general questions and answers, and you can get your questions answered. So if you like what you heard today, you're a first-time visitor, I'm so glad you came by. Please remember to follow me on LinkedIn so that you can get the notifications. And also be sure to follow the hashtag JT Talks Jobs. That way you will be able to get all the back. If you miss us one day, you can go back and see the recordings, all that good stuff. And of course, all the resources we talked about today, head on over to workitdaily.com/resources. You can download all sorts of cool stuff that will help you with whatever you're trying to make happen in your career, okay? Because if you want to win, you've got to work it daily. That is the truth. And it's never been easier. Never been easier. Think about it. I am live streaming on LinkedIn and giving you advice. That was not even possible in the last year. Not even possible. So it is crazy. No excuses. You can grow your career. You can make things happen. You just need to surround yourself with the right people on the right platforms and work it daily. Okay? That's what you got to do. Awesome. All right, everyone. I really appreciate you stopping by. Thank you so much. We'll be back again next week. Check out my feed. Lots of great topics coming down the pike. Okay? All right, everyone. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.